Back, everyone, to another episode or another edition of the Weekly Developer Podcast. I'm your host, Zion, and today we're actually doing things
Forza Motorsport 7 was built from the ground up for Xbox One X.
Busy next Wednesday, so the day you guys will actually be watching this. So what I'm actually doing is pre-recording this stream so I could play it for you guys, so you guys actually will still have a developer podcast next week when I'm actually out and busy. So today's topic is actually going to be one that I've alluded to in previous podcasts, and that is the idea of implementing RTS elements into this game. So for a while now, we've been kind of strategizing ideas and ways of improving the player invasion aspects of the game. So originally the idea was we were going to take the single player invasion and we were going to make it a team invasion. So it was going to be, instead of one person invading a planet, it was going to be 3. So I'd like to take this concept to the next level, actually, and instead of having player invasions, I'd like to see planet versus planet invasions. So I talked about this briefly in my Guild Wars video, so that podcast was a couple weeks ago, actually. But the idea here is that you'll actually have a planet versus a planet, so defenses versus defenses, and you would be able to spawn monsters, and the idea is to obviously invade and destroy the other players' town hall and all their buildings and everything. So essentially the idea is, like, if you were to die in this scenario, you just respawn back at your town hall, and the battle continues until one or the other's base is completely destroyed. So let's take this step by step, because this is going to be a very, very big update, and therefore this is probably going to be a very long video. So first things first is the actual monsters. So what is going to actually spawn in order to capture or destroy the enemy's base. So right now, we're currently in the process of creating new monsters for the game. So when you actually go into ships and houses, you'll see that you don't even have the option to go into the ships. And when you go into the houses and you hit A for assign, this would normally take you to the interface where you decide what monsters you want to use for your invasions. As you can see here, currently no monsters are available because they're being repurposed for something else, and we're going to be having new monsters in the game very soon. So, here's the idea with this. The ideas that I have for the RTS elements for this game actually come from another game that I actually have a lot of experience with. I played this other game for probably 2 or 3 years, and I kind of retired from the game about a year ago. So that game is actually Castle Clash. So this game is actually available on the Android, so I think you can get this in the App Store. And it used to have a port to PC, so I actually used to play this game on a site called Conjugate, but it stopped supporting the game, I think 2 or 3 months ago, so it's actually fairly recently. So unfortunately, I can't show you guys my account because I have like literally everything maxed out. I think the heroes go up to like level, I don't even remember, is it like 300 or something? But my heroes were all in like the level like 200s. So I was like, pretty jacked up. So I had, like top tier everything. But essentially the idea is, you have these things called army camps, and you upgrade these to increase the capacity of the amount of units that you can hire at a particular time. So we'll go in here and I'll show you. I've only literally just started this account. I haven't upgraded anything. So I have a maximum capacity of 20. And each of these characters you can see as given by this yellow star next to their name, their image here. This indicates to you how much capacity each individual unit takes up. So for instance, this first one, this warrior here, takes up 2. So because I have a maximum capacity of 20, and this takes up 2, I can only hire 10 of this unit before I max out my capacity. And then this archer here next to him, this one takes up only 1, so I can hire a maximum of 20. So we had a similar feature in the game in Unnyworld, actually, where, click off of that, go back to Unnyworld now. Uh, we had 4 monsters, but the 2 here on the side were actually, you weren't able to recruit these 2, so it was only the first 2. And one was called Trod, which was like a tree monster. It was a melee type. The other one was called Otro, if I remember correctly, and it was a range type. And likewise, like with this game, where you have like a maximum capacity and the different units take up different amounts for that maximum capacity, the same was true for Unnyworld. So Trod, which was the basic melee unit, only took up 1 capacity, but the archer unit, the range unit, took up 2. So they were both like tree creatures. So the archer unit, I think, threw rocks as its ranged weapon. So it'd like pick up a rock and throw the rock. But they were like tree monsters. So we're actually going to be getting new monsters in the game. I've seen what the monsters are supposed to be look like for the initial invasion. So when you actually start the game and you fight the evil witch Evie, I've seen the concept art for the new monsters for that invasion. I don't know if those are going to be the same monsters used for your in-game hired minions. So I kind of would like to see different minions. So like the forces of evil have their own specific minions, and then because you're on like the forces of good, you have your own different minions. So they should be different models. But we'll have to see. So not even I know what the monsters are actually going to look like for this. But the idea here is that, again, you're going to have 4 different types. So the first one's the basic melee unit. The second one's like a ranged unit. So the first one, the melee unit, only takes up 1 capacity. The range unit takes up 2. And then you're going to have a unit for the 3rd slot and 4th slot. And they should take up 3 and 4 capacity each. So the 3rd slot is going to be a flying unit. So we'll go back into Castle Clash here, and we can actually go to training, and this will show you all the available units you have throughout the game. So the way it works in Castle Clash is you have to upgrade your basic units that you start off with, and once you get it to level 5, you unlock the next unit in that tree. So this would be melee. Once you get this guy to level 5, you unlock the next melee unit. Once you get this one to level 5, you unlock the final melee unit. And same is true for range. This 3rd category here is for magic units, and then this one here is like special. It's generally tanky. It's more tanky than the basic melee unit, and I think it does more damage, but also takes away more capacity. But you can see here in the later tiers, you actually have flying units. So this one's a dragon. This is the one that I used to use the most, the dragon and the griffin. And you have like a ornithopter. So this is like a helicopter unit, and then I remember the griffin used to fly as well. So you would unlock these as you progress through the game, and you increase your tier in these individual trees. So how it would work for Unnyworld is as you upgrade your town hall, you would have, well actually not town hall, I think it's actually the portal. Yeah, so the portal. The portal is actually what's going to allow you to access the new monsters. So once you get to portal level 4 or whatever, that's when you unlock the final slot. So this one over here. So portal level 1 will unlock the first, portal level 2 will unlock the second, portal level 3 will unlock the third, and portal level 4 will unlock the final monster. So you'll have basic melee unit, ranged unit, and then a flying unit. Now the flying unit is going to be a special unit. Even though it's going to take up more capacity, it's going to be unique in the sense that it's going to be able to evade certain turrets. So let's zoom in here so we can look at our actual tower defense. So the idea is in the future, because of now that you can place different mountains, so you can have elevated platforms, I want to be able to place like mortars on these elevated platforms. So there's going to be certain turrets that you can use to place on the elevated platforms, and then the rest are going to be grounded. So flying units are going to be exempt from being able to be damaged from traps once we implement that in the future. So traps are going to be something that's going to be buried in the ground, and you have to actually walk over to ignite the trap. So because of that, because the unit is flying, it's going to be completely exempt from this. It can't set off the trap, and it can't be damaged by the trap. And then these ground turrets here, so fire tower and ice tower, it's also not going to be able to reach the flying unit. So they're not even going to target the flying units, as the flying units are ascending to your enemy's base. So the only thing that's going to be able to hit the flying unit is the character, the player character, and any turrets that are on an elevated platform, so like mortars, for instance. And then something you can add potentially later on is like maybe an arrow tower, so it can shoot arrows. And so like a mortar is more of like an AoE kind of structure. So it launches a cannonball, then it hits an area, then it explodes and affects all the enemies in a certain area. So it might have like lower accuracy when trying to hit a flying unit, so it might miss and still hit the ground and damage ground units or something like that. But you could potentially have different turrets that you could place on these elevated platforms. Like, for instance, like I said, an arrow tower, that might be rapid fire. So that might be the counter for flying units. So it rapid fires arrows at the flying units, and it does lower damage, but because it rapid fires, you know, it can take down their hit points more quickly. And it would be like single target, so it only would focus on one flying unit at a time. And because you have like a maximum capacity, we go back to houses real quick. Since you would have a maximum capacity, you wouldn't be able to just like spam flying units. You would only be able to use so many flying units. So you couldn't just have your strategy like, I'm going to fill up all my houses with flying units so they can evade all the traps and everything. Because you're only going to be able to have maybe 2 or 3 at a time or something like that. So because they require 3 capacity, let's say like the total capacity is like 15 or something, you'd only be able to use like 5 at a time. Meanwhile, you would be able to use, let's say, if you wanted to use the range unit because it only occupies 2, you could use 7 at a time. So there's going to be different trade-offs. And what this is going to allow for is different strategies for taking different bases. And then the final unit here, so that's the flying unit. The final unit here is going to be like a super tank. So you have a basic melee, a range, a flying, and then like a tank, like a heavy tank. So this is going to be like a quick melee unit. It's going to be faster than the tank, and it's going to do less damage and have less hit points. But the idea for this one is it's going to move quickly. This one here is going to move very slowly, but it's going to have more HP and it's going to do more damage. But it's going to be balanced by the fact that it's also much slower. And it's also going to be larger. And it's going to require more capacity points than any of the other units. So it's going to require 4. So again, you're not going to be able to just spam these tank units so that it can walk right up to the enemy turrets like Fire Tower and Ice Tower and just smash them, because you're only going to be able to place a couple at a time. So if we go back to Castle Clash here, the equivalent in this game would be like the Mecha Man or the Savage Ogre. So these guys are more bulkier, they have more HP, they also do more damage, and they move slower. So the idea here is, again, we go back to Unnyworld. These are going to be like the melee tanks. So you're going to have the melee damage dealers, I guess you can call them. They're going to be more like rogues, I suppose. They're going to be more quick on their feet, do higher or maybe not higher damage, but they'll have faster DPS. So, for instance, maybe they do attack every 1 or 2 seconds, where the tank might do an attack every 3 or 4 seconds. So it'll be slower. So it'll have both slower movement speed and slower attack speed. But it'll also have like way more hit points and way more defense. So the idea here is you're only going to be able to summon like a couple of these at a time, and they'll do massive damage. So by the time they get up to like a fire tower, they should be able to destroy it in 1 or 2 hits. So these are going to be much more tougher units, but at the same time, because they require so much capacity, again, you're going to be decentivized from using too many at a single time. Because if you use too many at a single time, you're only going to have like 5 units, on the map. Where if you use a lower unit that has a lower capacity, you can just swarm the enemy base with like 20 units at a time. So again, there's going to be all these different kind of levels of balance in order to prevent people just rushing the enemy with like flying units or rushing the enemy with tank units. There's going to be a little bit of a balance, so you want to use a little bit of each. So that's idea number 1. So again, as you upgrade the portal, this will unlock the new units, but to increase your capacity, you're actually going to have to upgrade house and ships. So the idea here is that house and ships are going to store different units. So the house will actually store, let's say, the heavy unit and the basic melee unit. So we jump back in here. So it'll store Unit 1 and Unit 4. So these are the melee units. And then maybe the ship here, which unfortunately I don't have the A anymore, so I can't go in. It should store the flying unit and maybe even the archer unit, or maybe the archer unit should be stored in the house. But the ship will be for the flying unit. So you could potentially send both flying units and melee units at the same time. These will have different capacities. So again, the whole idea here is strategy. That's the whole point of RTS. It's real-time strategy. So as you increase your capacity and you can have more units on the field, this is going to allow for people to come up with better kind of like layouts for their tower defenses. So we go back down here. If you know the enemy wants to take a direct approach, like let's say they release like 10 flyers or whatever, you're going to want to be able to bottleneck. So like as you can see here, it's more wide in the center. You're going to want to maybe put the towers for like the mortars and stuff, the turrets, they're going to be able to hit the flying units. You're going to want to probably put them a little bit closer together where they can get the most amount of enemies at like the same time. So again, this is going to require a lot of strategy. So that's the whole point with introducing these RTS elements. So if you guys remembered before, when I was talking about elemental altars and potentially changing this barracks here, which is like a physical altar. So right now you have fire, water, earth, and then barracks. So this is non-elemental. So the idea was to turn this non-elemental into an elemental altar, and this would become the air altar. And back here would become the thunder altar. So you would have fire, water, electric, earth, and air. So I said that you could potentially take this non-elemental altar and just repurpose this for something else. So barracks would just be used for something else. So in the future, because right now we have houses and ships, maybe you can create a third building for barracks, and maybe the barracks can be used for something else. So like I said, right now, you would have 4 units, so you would have basic melee, a range type, a flying type, and a tank type. So if you put basic melee in house, and you put the flying type in the ship, maybe barracks can be used for the heavy type. So as you increase barracks, now you'll be able to send out more of the heavy tank. So that's another idea. So maybe you would you would have like 4 houses, 4 ships, and then maybe only 1 or 2 barracks. So your maximum capacity, even when it's maximally upgraded, so right now that would be level 6, but in the future it would be level 10. Even at the maximum upgrade, because you have less of them, you wouldn't be able to use as many of them. So let's say the maximum capacity for a single building, once it's already like fully maxed out, let's say it's like 10. So because you have 4 houses, that would be 10 times 4. And in the future, I'd like to see 4 ships. It would be 10 times 4 for ships as well. So it would be 40. But because you only have like 1 or maybe 2 barracks, it would only either be 10 or 20, something like that. So again, the whole idea here is you don't want to have the ability to spam the higher units. The higher units should be kind of used sparingly. And the idea is like as you progress through the game, so late game, when you have players who've been playing for a very long time versus other players who've been playing for a very long time, so they had the opportunity to upgrade these buildings to their maximum levels, it's going to be like an all-out war because they're going to have so much higher capacities that they can hire so many more units that it's going to be like 50 units versus 50 units, and it's just going to be like a massive, massive war. So that's going to be very entertaining and fun to watch. So that's, again, one of the ideas I have for introducing these RTS elements into the game. So, oops, I didn't mean to do that. Let's try to rotate that back into its initial position. So again, so like I was saying, so this is potentially one of the things you could repurpose the barracks building for. So all you're doing is taking that model, you're taking it out of the game and you're replacing it with a new model. So this would become the air altar. And because, for instance, like myself, I already have it maxed out at level 6, you wouldn't have to like upgrade it from level 1 all the way back up to level 6. All you're really doing is replacing the model. So once the air altar would be implemented, it would already be level 6 or whatever level you have it at, so you don't have to level it up all the way back up to 6. And then this model here for barracks would just be repurposed. It would go back into like, I guess you can say the archive, and then would just pull it out to use it for something else later on. And even if we don't use it for planet invasion, so planet versus planet, what we can use it instead for is maybe this will take the place of buildings. So instead of these buildings here, these houses, maybe this will be the equivalent of the houses on your guild planet. So again, the whole point of RTS is not only you're going to have player versus or planet versus planet invasions, so it's going to be single player versus single player. I also want to have the idea of having guild versus guild invasions. So everything that I'm discussing right now for planet versus planet is also going to be relevant for guild versus guild. So what you could potentially do is instead of houses, instead of using the same model, so you would have a guild planet and you would be upgrading houses to increase your melee units or whatever. So you don't want to use the same model because that would kind of get boring. So maybe you can replace it with the barracks here. So the barracks would serve the same function as the house. So that's an idea that I had. What else did I want to talk about? Also, in this game, how it works is you have these things like mines that produce gold, and then you have these things like the mana mill that produces magic, and then you have maximum capacities of both. So as you can see here, this is my maximum capacity of gold, and this is my maximum capacity mana. So these generate the resource, so like mines generate gold. Once I hit that maximum capacity, I'm maxed out, so I can no longer collect any more gold. So what I have to do to increase my max capacity is upgrade the actual vaults. So this would be the gold vault. I would have to upgrade this to increase my capacity so I can collect more gold. And then this would be the mana vault. So the idea here is, I've been thinking for a while that right now, all of these buildings are tied to the town hall. So in order to upgrade any of these buildings individually, you first have to upgrade the town hall. So let's say my town hall, which is currently level 6, let's say it was level 5. The maximum level I can upgrade my ship would be level 5. If I wanted to upgrade my ship to level 6, I would have to actually upgrade my town hall to level 6 first. So the idea here is that it works similarly with elemental altars and undo. So these elemental altars are tied to the undo. If I had a fire altar level 5, in order to get it to level 6, I would have to upgrade the undo to level 6 first. However, when we go over here to the magic mines, you see that you have these magic mines surrounding this magic core, and this magic core currently cannot be upgraded. So my idea here is you can do this one of two ways. You can either have the mines tied to the magic core, just like the elemental altars are tied to the undo, in which if you want to upgrade your magic mine, you have to first upgrade the magic core. So right now all my mines are level 6. The idea is to eventually increase the maximum level for all buildings to level 10. So the idea here is I would not be able to upgrade my magic mines any further because they're level 6, because of the fact that my magic core is only level 1. So what I would have to do if we implemented this idea is I would have to upgrade my magic core up to level 7 before I can upgrade any more magic mines. This way the magic mines are tied to the magic core. You have to upgrade your magic core in order to continue to upgrade your magic mines. Currently the magic mines are tied to the town hall, just like the vast majority of the rest of the buildings. But I would like to see it tied to the magic core instead. On top of that, when you go to town hall, you see by upgrading your town hall, this is how you actually increase your maximum capacity for Acquium. So I had this idea for a while now that maybe you don't want to have the ability to upgrade Magic Core, even though I think it would be cool, because it's basically just a purple version of the Undo. So when you look at the Undo, you see it's a big blue crystal with all of these other crystals kind of like spiraling around it, like rotating. So what my idea is basically to have the same thing happen with the Magic Core. So as you upgrade it, it becomes bigger, and then it has all of these crystals kind of rotate around it. So again, it's going to be the equivalent of the Undo over here. It's going to be like the same concept. But apart from that, if that's too technically difficult or something that the other developers just flat out don't want to do, the other idea that I have is to create a treasury. So instead of the magic mines being involved with the town hall, so being dependent on the town hall. First, the idea was to make it dependent on the magic core, but if we can't do the magic core, the next idea would be to have a treasury. So the way this would work is you would have to upgrade the treasury instead in order to upgrade your magic mines. So if you have a treasury level 5 and a magic mine level 5, if you want to upgrade your magic mine to level 6, you would have to first upgrade your treasury to level 6. And then your maximum acquium limit, instead of being tied to the town hall, would actually be tied to the treasury. But that would be requiring building a new building. So that's why I would prefer to tie it to the magic core instead, because if we make a treasury building, now you have a whole extra building that you would have to create. So you have to model it, you'd have to texture it. So it would just be much easier if we just use the magic core instead. But the additional function of the treasury is that it would take away this idea of having the maximum acquium limit tied to the town hall. Instead, it would be tied to the treasury. So the town hall could potentially have a different purpose instead. So I spoke in the past about how I'd like to see the ability to upgrade the walls here, because of the fact that we've now increased the maximum level for gates to level 6. So right now my gates are only level 5, but as you can see here, as you upgrade your gates, they go from wood to stone. So this is still kind of reinforced by wood, so you still see some wood around here, but at level 6 it is entirely stone. So my idea here is that in the future I'd like to be able to see the ability to upgrade the walls, so that the walls eventually match, in terms of texture, the gates. So the way this would work is, as you upgrade the walls, they would go from like wood to like reinforced wood, like studded wood, so it has these like spikes here. Then it would be like this stone that's reinforced with wood, like as you can see here. And then once it gets to level 6, it would be entirely stone, just like the level 6 stone towers. And I was saying before that the way this would work is you wouldn't have to select each individual wall. So you wouldn't like select this section of the wall and then upgrade this section of the wall individually. The way it would work is you would have some kind of like building, and this would be like the interface for upgrading the walls, and it would apply to all the walls. So it wouldn't be just like each section, it would just apply to all of the walls. So my idea was to move that function to the town hall. So if we had a treasury building, then the maximum acquium limit could be tied to the treasury, and instead here, to replace this acquium limit, would be the option to upgrade your walls. Or just by upgrading your town hall would automatically upgrade your walls. It could work one of the two ways. So if you made it so the walls automatically upgrade with your town hall level, then by me already having a level 6 town hall, the walls would already, like, if we were to implement this feature, it would automatically level up to level 6. But if we wanted to make it so that you actually have to invest additional acquium, so you have to actually upgrade the walls, well, not individually, but separate from the town hall, that would be a feature or option available to you through the town hall. So right here, you would have like a wall level, and you would be able to like click on like this icon, so it would be like an upgrade button, and it would upgrade the walls. So the walls would have different costs. So not only would you have to upgrade the town hall, but then you would have the option once you go into the town hall to actually upgrade the walls. So those would have different costs as well. So it's really up to you guys, the players, and it's also up to the devs. Give us your feedback on how you think that should work. Do you think that the walls should just be tied to the town hall? So as the town hall upgrades, the walls automatically upgrade? Or do you think it should have like a second level? So once you upgrade the town hall, you get the ability that through the town hall to actually upgrade the walls. So let us know what you think. That was my idea with that. So again, the idea here is instead of having to build different buildings, because you could also potentially have done this through the barracks. So through the barracks, you could have the same feature where through the barracks you can upgrade the walls or something like that. Instead of having to build more buildings, which would require more modeling work or texture work, you could just apply these features to the already existing buildings. But aside from that, you only also have so much space on the planet. I mean, the planet isn't very big. So if we release a whole bunch of new buildings with all these new features, as you grow your base and make it larger and larger, you're eventually going to reach like your maximum limit where you can't really place down anything anymore. And what I would like to do is leave enough room for in the future for more vanity structures like the Halloween themed ones like Halloween Tomb and Witch House. I kind of want to leave enough room on the planet so you can place more objects like these. So the Halloween Tomb and Witch House. So maybe you have like Christmas themed like decoration buildings or Valentine's Day decoration buildings. So I don't want to load up the planet with too many extra buildings. I still want to leave enough room for people to place down decorations. So I'd prefer to have some of these features just implemented on the already existing structures. So, like I said, the magic mines hopefully should be tied to the magic core, and then we wouldn't even need to create a treasury building. And what we could potentially do is just add an option to upgrade walls through the town hall, or just make it so that the walls automatically upgrade with the town hall. It could be either or, it doesn't really. So that should cover it in terms of how the walls and everything should upgrade. What else did I have for you? So this one actually has, this game here, Castle Clash, has like a pet center. You can actually hire pets. I'm not entirely sure how we would implement such a feature in Unnyworld. That might be something we can discuss later on down the road. But, right, like, for instance, if you were to buy a pet or companion, I don't know if it would have some kind of stat advantages, like if you were playing Arena. It might just be entirely cosmetic. So something that might be able to just roam around on your planet. But as you can see here with these barracks, these army camps, when you build units in Castle Clash, they will actually appear on your base. So I don't want to like exceed an object limit. I don't know if there is one for Unnyworld, but I don't want to have like 50 units roaming around on your planet. It might kind of lag your game and everything because it's got to load up all these different objects. So everything could just pretty much exist how it does now, where when you assign units, it's stored in your buildings, but it doesn't necessarily, like in the game of Castle Clash, you don't need them to like visually, physically walk around on the planet, because again, that might lag your game. So what else is there? So just like Unnyworld, you have a town hall. In Castle Clash, as you upgrade this, you can upgrade all these other buildings. Here you have your basic turret. So this is a watchtower. Once you get this to level 10, you have the option of turning this into an arrow tower, cannon tower, which is sort of like, or a mortar, and like a magic tower. So in Unnyworld, we already kind of have like this concept implemented. So the three options, again, to reiterate in Castle Clash, is an arrow tower, cannon tower, and magic tower. The magic tower we'll start with first. We have fire tower and ice tower. So it kind of replaces the role of that. Then cannon tower, we actually have mortars. So this is where I got the idea, what I was saying before about implementing an arrow tower, which you could either put on the ground or maybe put on these raised platforms. And the purpose of the arrow tower is to shoot flying units. So as you summon flying units, as you build them in your house and ships, the arrow towers will prioritize the flying units first. So as the flying units are flying overhead, it'll target them first. And once it senses no flying units in the immediate vicinity, it'll start to target the ground unit. So that's where I got the idea for the arrow tower, or arrow turret, whatever you want to call it. And also these gates, they have these little flames on the top, and these also hit ground units. I think these should also target flying units as well. So again, just like the arrow towers, they'll have like a priority. So if they sense a flying unit within its proximity, it'll hit the flying unit first. So these are like anti-air units, or anti-air defenses. So the gates will target flying units first, just like the arrow towers. And if it doesn't sense anything within its proximity, so let's say it has like a circle like this large around it, if it doesn't sense any flying units within that circle, it'll just target whatever is the closest unit. So that's the idea with that. I think that should do. So like in this game, you have two different currencies. You have gold and mana. In Unnyworld, you just have Aquium. It kind of takes the place of both. It's both gold because it's like a currency and it's also magical in essence. So it's kind of like merging the two. You don't really need to have like a second currency in Unnyworld. Just not really necessary. In this game, you also have a warehouse. So this stores items. I talked about in previous podcasts how we eventually want to implement a dungeon mode. And potentially what you could do in the dungeon mode is once you defeat the boss, you would get like a chest with randomized wards, and you would have like tiered items. So maybe you have like a common drop, like a rare drop, and then like an epic drop, so you get different loot. And you would be able to equip these items to your characters, and they would have different bonuses. So some of them would be like a straight stat buff, so like increased strength or increased HP or increased defense. And some of them would be increase effects. So I used this example before with Morth, where maybe you have something called a champion's belt, and when you equipped it, it might increase his stealth abilities. So if he uses like smoke grenade or something, and it turns him invisible for like 3 seconds, maybe it'll increase the duration to like 4 or 5 seconds. So these are different things that we could do in the future of implementing items that you can equip, and then like I said, you would have these different chests, and they would have like loot tables. So some loot would be more common than others, and then you would be able to trade these with other players. So this goes back to another feature that I was talking about before, about having the ability to actually trade. So let's say I have this piece of loot that I don't need. Like let's say I have like an epic loot for Lane, because I never use Lane, and somebody else wants that loot. They can trade it for an epic loot for Akia, because Akia is my main, the character I play the most as. So you would be able to trade these with different characters. And what you could potentially do in the future is have like a market where you can just sell these items if you don't want to trade them, and they would have like a base price for each. So like common loot could be like 5,000 Aquium, rare loot could be like 20,000, and then epic loot could be like 50,000, just to throw out some numbers there. So even if you don't want to trade these with other players, you'd be able to sell them and get Aquium for them, and then you can use the Aquium to upgrade your buildings and whatnot. That's something you could do. So in this game, you'll have a warehouse for that. I don't know how exactly we would implement an inventory system in our game. It could just be a feature like this, like build, where it's just an icon down here. I don't know that you necessarily need a building to do that. It could just be an icon. What else do you have? And then you have magic. So the way this works is you buy different abilities, and these abilities, when you actually do an invasion in this game, Castle Clash, it'll appear on the bottom of your screen here, and then you select it, and then it'll be like an area of effect. So the one that I have right now is Arrow Rain. So the way that works is, let's say I was in an invasion, I would click a button down here for Arrow Rain, then I would click somewhere on the map, and then it would rain down arrows within a certain area. So let's say the area of effect is like this large. It would rain down arrows on anything that's within that area of effects. So it would damage both units and any buildings or structures. So the idea here is that could probably be tied to the town hall, where as you upgrade it, you can upgrade new magic abilities. So let's say this was the halfway point in planet versus planet invasions. So enemies are starting to come here and crossing the Rubicon into your territory. So what you would be able to do is click this button down here, and then let's say click it right here, and then it would start raining down arrows on all the enemies in this like vicinity, and they would take, you know, a lot of damage. And then you would have like cooldown timers for each of these abilities. So as you upgrade your town hall, you would unlock new abilities, and maybe you have like a maximum of like 5 abilities or so, and the stronger abilities would have longer cooldown timers. So for like a really awesome ability, that'll do like massive damage. So maybe you'll have something like Meteor Rain, where you click on an area and it'll rain down meteorites, and it'll do like massive damage. You might have a cooldown timer on that for like 3 to 5 minutes, so that you can only use it once per battle. But like something like Arrow Rain, because it might be like weaker, it might do less damage, or it might have a smaller area of effect, that might have a quicker cooldown timer, so it might be like 30 to 45 seconds, so you might be able to use it 2 or 3 times during a battle. But they don't always have to necessarily be damage. They could have different effects. So it could be a healing aura. So let's say you place it down here. So this is your territory, and these are your buildings. Let's say your building sustains some kind of damage. You could place down a healing aura, and it'll heal any of your units or buildings within that area. So let's say it has like an area of effect like this large. So it's encapsulating all of these buildings within the circle that I'm drawing with my cursor. It'll begin to heal all these individual buildings. So let's see what the maximum. So the maximum HP for this fire tower at its maximum level of 5 is 140. So let's say it sustained some damage and it was down to 70. So it'll begin to slowly heal over time. So let's say like 5 damage per second or something like that. So after a couple of seconds, it would go from like 70 up to like full health again. But obviously, you don't want to have like the healing aura last too long. So each of these things would also have not only a cooldown timer for how soon you can use it again, but like a duration timer. So a healing aura would be on the ground for like 5 seconds, and it would heal like 5 HP per second or something like, or 10 HP per second, something like that. So in those 5 seconds, it can heal between 25 and 50 HP, just to throw some random numbers out, so you guys can get an idea. And if you have your units, if they sustain some damage from your enemy's character, so let's say they're playing Yoji, and they're using abilities and they're damaging your units as your units are starting to cross into the enemy territory, and you throw it down, it'll heal any of your units that also cross into this area of effect. Now, the idea here is you're only going to be able to use your abilities on your own territory. You're not going to be able to use Meteor Rain. Let's say this is where your town hall is. Let's say the enemy's town hall is right here. You're not going to be able to choose your ability Meteor Rain and rain it right down on your enemy's town hall, because that's their territory. You can't use your abilities in your enemy's territory. All of these things can only be accessible in your own territory. So it's only when an enemy is invading you that you can use these as defensive measures. You can't use it to assault your enemy's base, because that would be a little bit broken. Because then what you would do is just use all your abilities right from the get-go on your enemy's base and like win the match in seconds. So it would be for defensive purposes. It would be raining all of these elemental effects. So it could be fire, it could be like ice to slow them. So you might have something where it's like a glacier that like rains down kind of like ice chunks and slows your enemies. It could work like that. But these things would be only accessible on your own territory. What else? So, like I said, it could be healing, it could be like a healing aura, it could be AoE damage, it could also be a shielding effect. So you could put up like a yellow shield, and it will shield all of your turrets, or if you have units that are crossing, and it could put a shield effect on them where they take like 25 or 50% less damage for the next 10 seconds or something. Another one could be like a speed aura. So you could place it down on your enemies, or not your enemies, on your own minions, your own units, and it'll speed them up. So like double their speed, or increase their speed by 50% or something for like 10 seconds, so that they can get to the enemy territory faster. So these would all be things that you could potentially get from upgrading your town hall, or maybe you can create a new building in order to unlock these abilities. But again, the problem with that is I don't want to overload the planet with too many buildings, because you only have so much space on your planet, and I'd really like to leave room for more cosmetic stuff in the future. And on that note, because I think I've talked about defenses long enough, let's talk about cosmetic stuff. Well, actually, let me select some of my resources here. We go in the shop and we go to decorations. As you can see here, you can place down things like statues. So we have like a Dracula statue, we have like a Cupid statue, we have random holiday themes. So this is like a chocolate cake, this is a Christmas tree, we have a snowman here, another Christmas tree, we have a grave, this is Halloween, a coffin, this is Halloween, and then we have more statues. So the idea here is in the future I want to expand the different inventory we have for kind of cosmetic structures. So structures that are there just for decorations. So right now we only have the Halloween tomb and the witch house. I'd like to see more holiday themed ones. So like Christmas trees for Christmas. Maybe like a stack of presents for Christmas. Maybe a large teddy bear or something for Valentine's Day. You know, different unique things like that. But aside from that, not just for holiday themed decorations, but just like random decorations as well. So the big one is, if we go back to Castle Clash, is these statues. I'd really like to see, oops, what am I doing? I'd really like to see statues. So statues can take the same size as maybe like the arena portal here. Okay, this is actually a pentagon. This is a hexagon. So maybe it would take up the same space as like one of these ships or something. So it would take up one cell. And these would be really, really large. It would be like the size of like maybe one of these towers. It would be a really large statue. And what you could potentially do is do one for each of the characters. So you can have like a Yoji statue, a Neri statue, Isna, Kia, Lane, Orga, Morth, etc. So you could have like different statues for the different characters, or you could just make them like random things. Actually, matter of fact, you have the character Eevee, who's like the main antagonist, so the main villain of the game. Maybe you have a statue of Eevee that you can buy. And the idea here is some of these statues would be purchasable through Acquium, which is like the main currency of the game, but they would be like really, really expensive. So just like the statues here in this game, as you can see here, this one is 2 million gold. So this one for Dracula, 2 million gold. That's a lot of gold. In order to increase your maximum capacity to a high enough level where you can actually store 2 million gold, you're talking about like end game levels of content here. So likewise in Unnyworld, the idea here would be to have these different statues that would cost like 200,000 Acquium or like 500,000 Acquium. They would cost a lot of Acquium, but not all of them would be purchasable for Acquium. Some of them might be unlockable through gems. So some of them might require like 1,000 gems or 2,000 gems. This gives players like an incentive to actually invest in the game and purchase gems so they can better decorate their play. So these are just some of the ideas that I have. I'm not exactly sure how long this section of the podcast went, but I also want to play something that I kind of messed up from last week. So last week I talked about how I want to be able to customize the guild emblem. So we'll go to profile real quick. Again, I always quit these guilds after joining, so let me just go to high school. Oops, leaderboards. We'll go to guilds. So as you can see here, you have these guild emblems. Every time you join a guild, you'll see it in the corner of your screen. And I want to increase the customization options for these guild emblems. I recorded a video literally right after doing last week's podcast because of the fact that there were some technical difficulties. I wasn't expecting for it to take so long because I was using another game as an example. So for this time around, I used Castle Clash to explain RTS. I was trying to use this game called Game of Thrones Ascent to explain the different customization options for the guild banners. And I didn't realize how far into the game you actually had to get in order to unlock that feature. As my memory served me, I thought that was an option available to you from the start of the game. But as it turns out, you actually have to play about an hour into the game to unlock that feature. So I wasn't going to just sit there and play for a straight hour on the stream and waste everybody's time, and then we would only wind up talking about that one subject. So I had to move on. And I said that I would later revisit that subject once I can go play through the tutorial and all the quests and everything and unlock that feature. So I went and did that, and I recorded some footage of that. So I will go ahead and play that next, and hopefully everything should work out because, again, this podcast is going to be pre-recorded. So hopefully this winds up taking about an hour, which is about how long podcasts normally go. But because that has already been recorded, I'm going to do the end slate right now. So I want to thank everybody for watching and attending and anticipating this podcast. Once this gets uploaded to YouTube, make sure to like, comment, and subscribe this video. And check out the other videos on this channel and make sure to do the same. If you want to financially support this game, make sure to check out the Steam store where we're currently selling the Founders Pack. And in the future, we're going to be selling additional packs. So I had mentioned in the last podcast how we want to implement a pack for Christmas, which is actually going to allow you to purchase all of these characters' Christmas skins. So we'll go to Yoji and we'll use his Christmas skin for an example. So we're going to put all of these Christmas skins, or at least most of them, in this Christmas pack, and maybe throw in the planet skin as well. So actually, let me get out of this. So it's going to be the character Christmas skins, and maybe also the Christmas skin for the planet as well. So it's going to be a big value pack. You definitely want to buy that while it's available in the Steam store, once it becomes available in the Steam store. So look forward to that next month, right before Christmas time. Aside from that, if you're feeling extra generous, make sure to check out our Patreon and donate there. Every dollar helps, and we use that money to reinvest in features for this game, so it goes to producing original content. And the more money we make, the faster we can produce these features for you guys and get these things done sooner. So again, if you're feeling extra generous, please donate to our Patreon. We would very much appreciate it. And yeah, so thank you all for watching. I'll go ahead and play the next clip that I recorded actually last week now. And then I will see you all next time. I want to wish everybody to have a very beautiful day. Thanks for watching. Okay, welcome everybody. I actually just finished recording today's weekly podcast discussion earlier today, and I was running into a lot of technical difficulties with getting to this part of the game where you can actually customize your banner. So, my memory as it recollects, I thought that you were able to actually customize your banner like at the very beginning of the game, as if like you're customized in like a normal game you would customize your character or your avatar or whatever. I thought you would customize your banner at the very beginning of the game. As it turns out, you actually have to complete the tutorial and the first handful of quests before you actually get to this point in the game. So I'm sitting here, live on the stream trying to get this to work, and I couldn't get it to work. I basically gave up after like 10 minutes of scrolling through the different quests. And as it turns out, I had to play for literally a whole hour to get to this point of the game where you can customize your banner. So it's a good thing that I didn't just sit there and play for a straight hour trying to get this to work. So I spared you guys a lot of troubles with that one. But as you can see here, right off the bat, you have like two different sigils. So this is like what your image would be that you would select, and it would appear on the center of your banner. So actually, I don't even have the game open. Let me get the game open. This way I can better explain what I failed to do during the podcast. And we'll probably just play this recording for next week's podcast. So there's no live on the air fumbling around like this. Oh, look at this. Finished a task. That's useful. What did I get? Anything good? No. So you guys will actually be seeing this next week. So this is a window into the past. So we'll go to profile. We'll go to my guild. So right here. The idea here is that you're going to be able to choose a sigil, and it's going to appear in the middle of your banner. So right here. So this is going to be your guild banner. So as you can see here, we have different options. So this one will change, or these two rather, will change your actual sigil. So as you can see here, we have different things that we can choose. So I can choose this like Warthog, choose this Thunderbolt. As you can see, you have this image up here. A star, for instance. And these two things on the side will actually change to colors. So let's change it to red. And then I believe this is the outline. Okay, no, so it's like a two-tone color pattern here. So let's just choose something a little bit more interesting. Let's go with, scroll down. Oh, I didn't see these buttons here. Got a book, a shield, an owl, a rooster, an eyeball. We actually have a badge that looks just like that. Go to profile. Got this eyeball badge. So this could actually work straight from this game. But let's choose something a little more interesting. So how about a crown? A crown looks cool. Crowns should be golden. We'll do gold, and the jewels should be maybe red. So there we go. And then we have a skull underneath. Let's change the colors of this. This is green and red for some reason. So we'll do white and maybe no, something a little darker. Dark gray. About this. That's kind of cool. So as you can see here, you can actually change the color of the sigil that you choose. But like I was explaining before in the podcast, with these badges here, the idea is that you're going to have three essentially layers, so three color tones. So one is going to be for the actual sigil itself. So let's, for instance, choose the skull. So the skull would be one color. The second layer would be the background. So as you can see here in most of these other badges, you have a dark gray background, and then you have a rim or perimeter around the entire badge. So you have one for the sigil, or the object in the center of the badge. The next one would be the background, and then the third is the kind of perimeter that goes around it, the ring that goes around it. So it's going to be three color options. So here you only have the two. So ours is actually going to have three, so it's kind of an upgrade. And what do we have here? So we can actually rotate it. So let's choose something that isn't like symmetrical. So let's choose this moon here. So as you can see here, you can even rotate it. So, and then here in the background, you can actually choose the pattern that you want to have, and then even choose the colors. So this will choose the shape. So as you can see here, we have kind of like a shield bottom here, or I don't even, like a trapezoid, I think that is. So it's like an upside down trapezoid, and then you have kind of like tears and rips. So this one's like the shape of a shield. This is more along the lines of the shape of our current guild banner. So oops, keep scrolling down. So maybe something like this looks a little bit better, a little bit more rounded. I don't know. This isn't entirely necessary for customization. I don't know that will necessarily be able to change the actual shape of your shield. So let's actually go to our guild. So this is a classic shape of a shield. This is actually what's called a heater shield. A lot of people confuse this for a kite shield. Kite shields are actually much larger, and they have rounded tops and much pointier bottoms. So actually, I'll just draw a picture. So a kite shield looks more like this. It's round, and then it tapers off much more dramatically, like that. Okay. A lot of people confuse heater shields with a kite shield. So this is what an actual kite shield looks like. This is more of a heater shield. So maybe what you could potentially do is, is maybe change the shape. Again, maybe not entirely necessary, but it would just be another level of customization. But this is more important. This was what I was talking about before, about the actual different patterns that you would be able to choose. So this is a single line that goes down vertically. Then you have this one. It kind of goes across horizontally. This one separates it in four, so it's like a cross formation. This one has a stripe, a single large stripe. This one is a diagonal stripe that goes across side to side. This one is another stripe just in the opposite direction. This would be stripes down from top to bottom, so these are vertical stripes. This is checkered, and then this one is like wavy. So this is, and then you can actually choose the colors. So if you don't like the default color palette, you can say like blue and maybe red or something. So you decorate it any way you wish. So actually, let's go with this one. I kind of like this the best. So you would have these different patterns that you can actually choose from. So this gives a total. So this is 6, and this is 10 different patterns. We could probably come up with a larger selection, so maybe like 15, 20 different patterns. And then this actually, because of the fact that we have more than one sigil in this game, we're actually just going to go with one. This is the idea of how it should look in Unnyworld. But in this game, you can add more. So if you wanted to add additional sigils, you'll be able to do this. So this is Game of Thrones Ascent. But this isn't particularly important for the purposes of the discussion of our video. So just for people, if you're interested in this game, I'll just show you all some of the different options we have here. But yeah, so you can choose different the amount of sigils that you want, and then kind of the order that you want to place them in. But for the purposes of our game, we're just gonna have a single one. So it's gonna be centered, just like this. So actual customization options are gonna be actual colors, so as you can see here, and the patterns in the background. And then on top of it, the sigil itself will be able to actually change the colors up. So like, for instance, make it green. But for the purposes of our game, you're going to actually have these badges. These are what the sigils are going to be. You're going to be able to choose stuff like this, and it's going to have 3-tone colors. So again, it's going to be the object in the center, then the circle around it, and then the perimeter, the rim. So it's going to be 3 different colors, as opposed to this game's only 2. And likewise, in the background, you're going to be able to choose these different patterns, and then you're going to be able to choose different colors. So in this one, again, you only have the 2 options, so red and blue. So these kind of alternate, so blue, red, blue. What you could potentially do with ours is choose each one of these portions individually. So maybe you could have blue, red, and then like green and yellow. Or if you wanted to do a more intricate pattern like this, so you have all these different stripes, maybe you can have like every color of the rainbow, essentially, if that's what you wanted to do. So maybe we can even do this kind of like vertically or horizontal or diagonally is what I meant, and have it like every color of the rainbow. So you have like a rainbow guild banner, that if that's what you want to do, or like checkers, and you could do like black and white. So this would be like a classic chessboard. Or if you want a checkers board, black and red, something like that. So maybe you don't want just 2 colors. Maybe you want to switch it up. So maybe you would have up to 4 color options. So this is just to give you guys a quick idea of essentially how this guild banner customization work. So one more thing that I want to talk about, I didn't mention in the this morning's podcast. I just recorded that about 3 hours ago. So, as you guys can see, I'm still wearing the same clothing. I would hope I'm not wearing the same clothes next week. And you guys should be watching this. But when we zoom into our town hall, I had mentioned before with the potential release of having a guild planet where you'll be able to build a, defenses and stuff for the purposes of having planet versus planet invasions, what we're going to call guild wars. In replace of your town hall, you're going to have something called a guild hall. And you don't even necessarily need to change the physical model for this. You could just take this model of the town hall and just repurpose it. But one of the things that I do want to change, as you can see, it's hard to get a good angle on this, the flags on the top. What I would like to see is that however you customize your guild banner, so this banner here, should reflect the changes on your flag for your guild hall. So that's kind of an idea that I have, is that the flag as it's waving is actually going to have your guild emblem on it. So you'll be able to customize the flags on your guild hall via the guild banner interface. So go to guild and you customize your banner here. This will actually also change your flag. So if you have, like, for instance, this spiral, this brown and orange spiral design, your flag would have an orange and brown spiral design on it. Now, if that is too difficult to do, if we couldn't do it via flags, then what we could potentially do is like a banner instead. And the banners can hang from like this level here off the side of the building. So they can kind of like drape down, kind of like a curtain. Kind of like these curtains. So they can be held at the top here, and they can kind of drape down the sides of the guild hall. So kind of like this. I'll draw a picture real quick. But it could come down like this. I know this is a very crude drawing. And then your guild emblem, because it's this shape of a shield, could look like this. So just like that. So the one currently have here for the guild that I randomly joined is brown and orange spirals. So it could look like this. Draw some random spirals. That. And it's brown and orange. So it looks kind of like this. And we'll just do like a red banner. So it'll kind of look like this. So this will actually hang off the side of your guild hall. Go back into the game and right along here. So if we couldn't do it and implement it in such a way that it affects the flags that wave off the side, maybe it can hang off the side of the guild hall, the building here, this dome shape, just kind of drape down. So you could have like one on each side. So it'd be like 4. One will drape down this way, one will drape down this way, and then you would have like 2 in the back. So yeah, so that's a quick idea that I had. Again, it took me literally a whole hour to get to this point in the game where I can actually customize stuff. So I spared you guys a lot of trouble of having to sit there and watch me get through this entire thing. Let's try to end this off. We'll be the Illuminati. That's what we'll do. So the all-seeing eye. Yeah, that actually looks kind of cool. What do you guys think? So we'll do gold and maybe. So there you guys go. The all-seeing eye, the Illuminati's watching you. And I'll go ahead and end this video now. Thank you all for watching, and stay tuned for the rest of this podcast.